Welcome to the Plant Trainers Podcast, where we're helping people improve their quality of life through nutrition and fitness. And now, your hosts, nutrition and wellness coaches, international speakers, Adam and Shoshana Chaim.
Hey, I'm Adam Chaim.
And I'm Shoshana Chaim, and we are
Propelled by Plants. Today we bring to you episode 360, Boost Brain Performance Using Nootropics with Julie Morris.
In this episode of the Plant Trainers Podcast, we talk with Julie Morris about nootropics and how it could boost your brain performance. Her energy is so high and cheerful, which really shows us that she doesn't just talk the talk, but she actually walks the superfood walk. We cover what actually makes superfoods as superfoods and if it's actually necessary. We talk about nootropics, which is a category of superfoods to specifically improve cognitive functioning. And if you want to know about coffee, well, you'll have to stay tuned. We cover that as well.
Julie Morris is a natural food chef, culinary consultant, and best-selling author of 5 superfood cookbooks, including Smart Plants, Power Foods, and Natural Nootropics for optimized thinking, focus, and memory. She's also the founder of Luminberry, an online superfood cooking education center that showcases how to cook with nature's most revitalizing foods. This is a tasty episode that you don't want to miss. Check it out and share it with your friends. With Father's Day just a few days away, I wanted to remind everyone that I put together this really short ebook with so many amazing ideas and tips on ways for fathers, for dads to really figure out how to improve their lives and to be able to make time for all they want to do, even if they have a full-time job and a family. And I was inspired to put these tips together and share them with you because it's something that I was able to figure out. And why should you have to figure that out if I already did that for you? So it's a really short ebook, and you could pick that up at planttrainers.com/shop. And even though dads are not the best at sharing their feelings, this book is certainly going to be one to help you get through that. So if you have a father or dad in your life, pick it up for them, and hopefully it helps out. And now for a moment of gratitude.
I am grateful for bananas. We have been going through bananas at home like crazy, and they've helped in so much baking, and I'm just so glad that they are available and cheap and really nature's candy.
I love bananas. I'm grateful for this time of year because it's the end of the school year, and while it's been an interesting year so far, it's been pretty cool to still be able to connect with students and maintain the education process online.
Julie Morris, thank you so much for joining us on the Plant Trainers Podcast today.
Thank you.
We were having some fun just before we started the recording, kind of laughing around about the pronunciation of names, and we will call you Julie Morris aujourd'hui.
It has a little bit more of a curl to the R, Maurice.
Oh, that's what I'm sorry, I didn't get it right.
But you're not French, right?
Most people don't. It's fine. It's fine.
We are so happy you're here today. Do you have a moment of gratitude to share with us?
Oh, okay. So every single morning, I actually have my own little mental gratitude list that I go through. However, what I'm really grateful for is where I get to go through this gratitude list in the first place, and that's my garden. I am so grateful just for the power of nature, what it has to teach us, the patience that it gives us, the amount of calm that it provides on a daily basis. And whether it be in the garden itself, my own garden, or anywhere, just underneath a tree, it's pretty amazing what nature really does have to offer, the way it allows us to slow down almost instantaneously. It's like a big natural hug of sorts, like everything's going to be just fine. Don't you worry.
That's super cool. And don't forget, and I'm sure you don't, to be grateful that you can be there almost every day where, you know, in colder climates, nobody wants to be in their garden in the middle
Nobody
of November.
Wants to be outside, yeah.
No, yeah. So, you know, just like, I'm just thinking like to be able to do that on a daily basis is like, wow, so amazing. And it makes me be grateful for these months more.
Seriously. For real. Just having that relationship with plants overall, I think is so magnificent.
Super. And and for those people watching on YouTube, there's a little plant behind you now. So that's very telling.
This room that I'm in right now, like you can't really tell per se, but it's like, well, it's going to be a baby nursery. But for right now, it's actually what we call the plant nursery. And it's where all the plants that aren't doing so hot go to be resurrected. And all of them do really, really well in this room. So this plant was not doing so well this past summer, but now he's much better. So he's my little guy.
That's super interesting how they kind of thrive in that room. We have rooms in our house where plants don't thrive at all. So
What, every single room?
I haven't tried the bedrooms yet. I don't know. Are you supposed to sleep with plants in the bedroom? I don't know. I've heard some like Ayurvedic or like different feng shui. Different people have different ways of thinking about it. That the plants are giving oxygen or they're taking oxygen. I don't know. Do you have any opinions on that? I know it's not your specialty.
It's not my specialty. On a very, very micro level, yes, they are helping to clean the air a little tiny bit. I mean, we're talking about microscopic. Some people are like, oh, it just like scrubs the air clean. It's not that much. But I do think it's a very calming thing to have, and I personally really enjoy it. There's a couple plants in my room. They seem to be just fine. I like waking up in the morning and saying hi to them, so works for me.
Perfect. So you have a love for plants, apparently, like in the plant sense. But what about the plants and the foods that we eat? How did you come across and find and embrace a plant-based diet?
I started a plant-based diet, not 100% exclusively, but when I was 14. And I watched a video at school about just how animals are treated. And I had so many pets at home. And I finally made this connection that the pets that I had and the food that I was eating, it's all the same thing. And I couldn't imagine killing my pets and putting them on the plate. And so that's really what started my plant-based journey overall. And it took a really long time for me to appreciate the power that plants themselves actually had. At first, it was more just a love of animals that led my plant-based journey. But it soon developed into truly a love of plants as well, and just what they can do for us and the power that they have over every single aspect of our health. It's so exciting. And the amazing thing to me is that there's always more to learn. Every single plant has something to teach us. Every single plant has something to offer us, sometimes on many different levels. And so the fact that there is no perfection, there is just only progress, and there is just infinite amounts of learning is really exciting to me. And I love having that relationship with the food that I eat on a daily basis.
And it's funny how your book is called Smart Plants, and you're learning so much from plants, but plants are quite smart themselves, right? So it kind of goes in there really nicely.
It does. It does. No, and that's the interesting thing, is that every single plant has a different effect on our body. No two plants are alike. A lot of times people say what's the best plant? I'm like, for what? For what specifically, and for who? And for when? There's all of these different elements that really come into play when we're talking about what is the optimum diet and how to fuel ourselves right here, right now.
That's an interesting perspective, because we get that question so often, what's the best food that I should be eating? What should I be? And you're right. Every food has a different purpose, and every food will react in every body differently. And so that's an interesting perspective.
But if you ask our son, the answer is broccoli.
The answer is broccoli. It's true.
And perhaps if I ask your daughter, maybe chocolate?
It might be.
Probably.
But I don't know. Today it might be coconut. Every day is different with her, so you never know.
Well, every day is different with most of us, and that's just the truth.
Yeah, except for Russell, when every day
it's always broccoli.
Every day is broccoli day.
What an amazing food to have as your favorite food, though. Legitimately, how many of us can honestly say, yep, broccoli, number one. That's impressive.
And, because we always talk about how broccoli is it's the underdog. It is the superfood. And I mean, there's so many other superfoods, and we're going to get into it. We're going to talk about nootropics today, but there are, when you think about it, what's mostly accessible in most of North America, what's fairly cheap compared to some of these other things that we find on the shelves of the health food stores. Broccoli gives you so much bang for your buck, and you could find it everywhere. So for me, that's super.
And it lasts a long time too.
Yeah.
It's not Yeah, it's not like a lettuce where like 3 days later it's good on life. The broccoli can last for like a week or so in the fridge, maybe a little bit more if you're lucky.
You could freeze it. It could be flash frozen. So many good qualities of broccoli.
So you mean people talk about superfoods all the time, and like, is this a superfood? Is that a superfood? How do people what is a superfood really? What how would you define what a superfood is, and what people should be looking for or thinking about when they hear that term?
So I personally define superfoods, and this is something that I've been working with for the past 15 years as my focus of all of the recipes that I make. Superfoods are essentially the most nutrient-dense, benefit-rich foods found in nature. But I think the big thing that separates superfoods from just good-for-you foods is this idea of nutrient density, which is the ratio of micronutrients per calorie. And once you start looking at those micronutrients, the vitamins, the minerals, antioxidants, phytochemicals, all of a sudden you start really seeing why superfoods are so super, why they really do stand out and shine. You may have something like an orange, which is very high in vitamin C, and that's great. Eat oranges. But then you have something like camu berries, which have like the equivalent to 11 oranges in 1 tablespoon or 1 teaspoon rather of camu berry powder. And that's incredible. That is like the essence of nutrient density. And so what I really like to try and emphasize is with superfoods, it's not so much about the semantics of what is a superfood, what is not a superfood. Superfoods to me is more of a philosophy of being an opportunist when you look at the foods that you eat. What am I going to get the most out of in terms of what I'm putting on my plate? It's not that everything has to be epic. It's not that you have to have like broccoli sauce with a broccoli pizza, with like more broccoli juice on top. It's not that every single aspect, rice has its place in the world, but just trying to look at how can I enhance the nutrient density of my plate overall. And oftentimes these superfoods really are the best, most efficient way to do that.
Is it always necessary though? Like, this is what I come back to with a lot of my clients. Are like, I can't afford everything out there, or, macas being pushed everywhere in every magazine. So everybody thinks that they need the maca. So
because they term those things as the superfoods, right? Like the goji berry is a superfood, and it's so expensive. And do people really need to be?
Yeah, do people really need it? So do we need 11 oranges in one smoothie, or the vitamin C worth of 11 oranges in one smoothie? And I really think that when people are going to go, and you can talk to this too, if they're going to go and spend their money on superfoods, to make sure that they're superfoods that are for them in that point of time and whatever it is that they're trying to work on. Do you want to talk to that a little bit?
I think you bring up some really, really valid points. And it's so important to note that there's no need to go out and buy every single superfood that's in a book, in my books for that matter. And I say that very frankly. There's many different categories of superfoods. Really paying attention to what you need right now is so very important. And I like to think that really, again, we're looking at our plate as an opportunity, and that can come in many different formats. And so, having something like a quote unquote everyday superfood like leafy greens, kale, broccoli, spinach, like these are great examples. You don't have to buy spirulina powder. I love spirulina powder. It has its own advantages to it. It has its own special antioxidants. It has its own special minerals and nutrients. But you don't have to get that in order to have the wonderful benefits of, the vitamin K and the chlorophyll and the iron, all of these great things that are found in just regular, everyday leafy greens. And so you can take this as far as you want along the spectrum, depending on your own health goals, objectives, life circumstances, etc. I think there's tremendous amounts of flexibility within all of this, within diet in general. I wish more people would talk to that flexibility, frankly, and doing what makes you feel good. Your body is your very best calibrator, more than any book or any podcast you could listen to. It's what makes you feel good. And we all know the difference between how we feel after a piece of chocolate cake versus a wonderful superfood smoothie.
Absolutely. And I think that people often have those food hangovers even the next morning, and you've really got to work hard at taking that feeling and putting it on to that action of what you eat so that you can remember it for next time. Because like I love how you're saying every plate is an opportunity to make another choice, or to have another superfood, or to choose nutrient density. We can always just start fresh, but we really have to pay attention to the lessons that life is trying to show us, for sure.
Absolutely. And I think that's what's really exciting, is that with those lessons comes these new experiences of health and wellness, and having those experiences where you suddenly feel better after something. I mean, that's how I got into superfoods in the first place. For the longest time, I ate terribly, even when I was at first a vegetarian and whatnot. I mean, there's a lot of things that are vegetarian and vegan that aren't very healthy. I did not know what I was doing. And I didn't realize for a very long time that food could actually make you feel good. I didn't know. I had no idea. I thought that it was just either something to be guilty about or something that, made you fall asleep afterwards. And so once I started to have that new relationship with food as something that was genuinely giving to my body, it just became so exciting to pursue that next level of health. And again, that next level never really ends. And that's where I think it's really, health and wellness, it shouldn't be a dry subject. It's actually a really fun subject. How much more potential is inside all of us right now?
Right, and we're evolving. We're always evolving and learning new things and adjusting and adapting to try to better ourselves in every possible way, which is why, like you said, it's so important for people to find awareness and be aware of how food makes them feel. And a lot of people don't really pay much attention. People these days are very quick to just shovel food down their throat and move on to something else because something else is more important. And we need to really be spending time and focusing on how we feel with the foods we're consuming.
So let's learn something new now. So before I said nootropics, and I think for some people, they may have even paused the recording already to go look that up. It's not something that we've really talked about before on the show. So why don't you explain to everybody what that means?
Sure. So the simplest way to think about nootropics is basically they're like superfoods, but they can help enhance your brain performance, specifically your brain performance. So I kind of think of them as these brain boosting, cognition enhancing substances that can improve the way you think, they can improve the way you feel, and they can improve the way you function, all without side effects. Now, what's really important when we're talking about the subject of nootropics is to realize that there are different types. So there are chemical nootropics out there, and we're not talking about those, or at least I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about natural nootropics. And this was one of the things that, for me personally, several years back when I started first studying them, was the most exciting aspect to learn, was that many of the foods that we eat, some are more exotic, but some are, again, these everyday foods, have these brain boosting abilities and can truly impact how we see the world, how we perform in the world. And this can make all the difference in how we think, feel, and function. And so nootropics are, again, this opportunity to pursue a better life, whatever that looks like for you.
This episode of the Plant Trainers Podcast is brought to you by Energy Bits.
If you want a healthy, natural way to fuel your workouts or fire up your brain, Energy Bits are for you. Energy Bits are tiny spirulina algae tabs that are nutritionally dense, a source of mental and physical energy that is all natural and causes no stomach distress. They eliminate fatigue and hunger instantly with no caffeine, sugar, chemicals, gluten, or soy, just pure plant-based nutrition. 1 ingredient, 1 calorie, and 0 net carbs. I use them before workouts or sometimes just as a snack. They make me feel great and give me that extra energy boost I'm sometimes looking for. I also use recovery bits, which are tiny chlorella tabs. I use them after workouts or when I'm feeling hungry late at night. Visit energybits.com and order Energy Bits, Recovery Bits, Vitality Bits, or Skinny Bits, and use the promo code PLANTTRAINERS to get 20% off your order at checkout. The link will also be in the show notes just in case you didn't get that all down. Improve your energy, wellness, and waistline all at the same time with Energy Bits. Check out Energy Bits today and feel the difference. Your brain and body will say thank you.
And now back to the show. So give us some examples of what that looks like?
Sure. Of the nootropics themselves, or what that better life looks like?
Let's talk about the nootropics themselves.
Got it. So a few examples of everyday nootropics, because some of them, again, they are like a little bit more out there, but a few examples of the everyday ones. One of the best ones, frankly, is purple berries. Purple berries, which includes things like blueberries, blackberries, elderberries, but even what we wouldn't consider to be purple, things like raspberries and strawberries, because they still have the same antioxidants. All of these fruits are tremendously beneficial for the brain. They have been extremely well studied, especially for their effects on memory and learning. There was a study several years back that showed that the more children ate purple berries, the more they learned in school. There was a direct correlation between berries and learning. And this is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what these berries can do. They're also highly neuroprotective. They protect your brain on almost every single level. So they're not only protecting against disease, but they're protecting against decline, mental decline, which is something, if we're not already facing, we will. And so it's important to start early with this protection aspect. There's many different types of nootropics that are a little bit more exotic as well. Some of them are different types of medicinal mushrooms. Lion's mane is a huge one. Reishi is another fantastic one. There's many Ayurvedic herbs out there and things that are used in traditional Chinese medicine. One of my personal favorites is ashwagandha, which is an amazing herb, especially good for difficult times of stress and burnout. That is an incredible tool that can help us, keep calm and carry on.
And how do you decide how much of this you need on a regular basis every day?
Really good question. It totally depends on the type of nootropic. It also depends on the source of the nootropic that you're getting. So let me explain that a little bit. Something like fresh berries, I wouldn't worry so much about the amount. If you're eating a handful or two, like a serving or two, like that's enough. You don't need to worry so much. Something like ashwagandha is a completely different story. You may be consuming ashwagandha as a powder so that it still has a little bit of fiber in it, and you may be able to consume it a touch more, or maybe you're consuming it as a tincture and it's already been really condensed. All of its active compounds are very condensed, and so maybe you want to consume a little less. Because I'm not a medical practitioner, I like to say, A, ask your medical practitioner, but also B, check with the package or the manufacturer as well and go alongside those recommendations. I normally say with any type of new regimen, just start slow, see where things are. Everybody is different. And even the healthiest foods on the planet, some of the coolest foods on the planet, they may not be right for you. And that's just the way it is. And I've had several of those experiences myself where I'm like, not right for me. It's okay.
It's okay. Move on. There's plenty of others to choose from.
I felt like that when I tried the maca powder. It just didn't feel good to me. It didn't make me, it upset my stomach very easily. And so I turned off to it. I wonder, what about like the expense of these things? Like a lot of them are quite expensive. And so people are going to be very hesitant to go that route because they don't want to pay so much money for something that maybe they can get similarly from other cheaper foods.
So to that, I would say a couple things. Some of these nootropics, that's part of actually what makes them so special. Especially some of these herbal compounds, they really do have compounds in them that you're not going to be able to find either in significant quantities or maybe at all in other foods, because we're talking about phytochemicals. We're not just talking about like vitamin A, which I totally agree with you on that front. To the expense aspect, I can understand this 100%. And again, it comes down to two things. It comes down to recognizing that these are very potent foods that you don't necessarily need to take a lot of. So some of these ingredients, they will last you for months. If you get them in like a powdered form or tincture form, you're taking tiny, tiny, tiny amounts. So that cost per serving is relatively low. And the second aspect is, again, just doing what you can. You don't need to incorporate every single one of these, and you shouldn't incorporate every single one of these. Maybe start out with one. Maybe you're starting out with cacao. It's not one that we didn't mention before, but cacao is an amazing nootropic. And it's not cheap per se, but it's not highly expensive either. It's going to last you a long time. And you can start playing around with that and seeing how it makes you feel. And I think that one of the exciting things about health is that you kind of get addicted to that feeling of feeling really, really good.
And then you can do more, and you could make more money, and you could share more money, and you could donate more money if you have more energy to do it. But, So I'm sitting here saying that to you, the same point as Adam. And then I'm thinking, okay, so the other day it was $9.50 for a pint of strawberries. Organic strawberries, right? And I'm like, well, if I buy the $25 bag of ashwagandha or matcha, and I'm using half a teaspoon every time, how many smoothies is that going to give me versus like those 20 strawberries that cost 50 cents each that, the kids finish off in one meal? It's kind of relative, and you kind of think about it that way. And there are sacrifices that you could make too, right? Like maybe you're buying a couple of things in your cart that you really don't need and they really don't serve you. And if you just put that towards, a new superfood every month, you can definitely get somewhere. So you mentioned cacao, which is a great one. What about coffee? Does that fall into the nootropic section? Because people want to hear good things about their bad habits. So what do you have to say here?
Well, I'll tell you the good things about coffee first. It's very high in antioxidants. It also has a lot of caffeine, which may not come as any surprise to anyone, is a great stimulator for more thought and more motivation. And there actually are a few studies, one recent one actually funded by coffee manufacturers, of course, but basically showcasing that coffee can potentially protect the brain against disease because of some of those antioxidants, again, especially in cases of things like Alzheimer's and whatnot. Still new science. But that being said, I would not consider coffee a nootropic per se. And I will tell you why. It's a very, very highly caffeinated product. And what caffeine does is it serves as a credit card for our body. It's not actually giving our body anything, right? We're not building our body up or our brain up like a traditional nootropic would. It's actually it's borrowing. So we're tapping into our adrenal glands. We're also tapping into our neurotransmitters. It's spurring a release of excess neurotransmitters, which is why we feel so happy and motivated when we get our cup of coffee in the morning. Now, we have to pay that back once the caffeine wears off, and that's where that vicious cycle starts to begin. I'm not saying that coffee is the devil. There's much worse things out there to have. All I'm saying is that it's probably best to keep coffee as a treat or a tool rather than a habit. And look to your habits, your true habits, being things that actually build your body, build your brain, build those resources so that when you wake up in the morning, you naturally feel really good.
So for me, the times in my life where I've given up coffee, I've given it up, but I still want something warm. I still want something creamy. I still want something in the morning or in the afternoon. So I will have a cup of coffee every morning now at this point in my life. In the afternoon, I usually want something similar, but I'll never go back to the coffee again. It will always be something decaffeinated or something else. So what can you recommend in terms of nootropics, in terms of just superfoods in general for people to drink when they want something rich and creamy and warm, but they don't want the caffeine to come along with it? Well,
one thing that actually has a little bit of caffeine, it's you may like talk about it as like a nice compromise, is something like matcha. Matcha and green tea are also incredible nootropics. They're incredibly brain protective. They help with focus and creativity. They help enhance alpha brain waves, which again is what you tap into when you've got that kind of like thought flow and you're in the flow. Matcha has all of that and more. And it has anywhere from half to a third of the amount of caffeine that coffee has. But it has all of these benefits that come along with it. And it also has an amino acid called L-theanine, which helps us relax at the same time. L-theanine is a very, very calming amino acid that helps to enhance a neurotransmitter called GABA. And that's basically our main inhibitory neurotransmitter that helps keep us calm. So you have basically this little boost of energy, but also the ability to stay nice and calm at the same time. And it makes for a really wonderful effect for your brain and your spirit, and also gets you out of bed if you need it.
That's good. That's good. Getting out of bed is definitely a good thing. So what about having the green tea in the afternoon? Because I know, like, for me, coffee in the afternoon is a no-no.
You mean because of the caffeine?
Because of the caffeine. I try not to have anything with caffeine in the afternoon unless I'm having some chocolate. But, in terms of drinks and stuff like that. So will it have that same no sleeping effect on you if you do drink it in the afternoon?
Depends on you personally. Some people are just more sensitive to caffeine than others. My husband can drink coffee at night and then go to sleep. We're all a little bit different in that category. But if you were looking for something that was completely uncaffeinated, then I would recommend looking to something like turmeric. Turmeric is another great nootropic, helps to enhance memory, helps to protect your brain, and you can make beautiful turmeric lattes, which are, you can either find in my book or all over the internet, let's face it, that are really rich and creamy, and you add a little ginger and black pepper. I actually like to blend in a little bit of goji berries in mine too, just for extra nootropic action, but you don't have to. And it really is like that, exactly what you're looking for. It's rich, it's creamy, it's comforting, it's brain boosting, but it has zero caffeine and all the benefits.
That sounds beautiful to me. I want to hop back to the green tea for a second. And I'm already saying, okay, note to self, go through the book after, find some kind of turmeric latte that Adam could make us every afternoon.
I'm not a latte. No, I won't do it. I'm not a latte guy.
Okay, you can have it sans latte, and I'll have it with latte.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Sure. You heard it here, folks. Okay.
Sure, but you can make it.
The green tea. What about decaffeinated green tea? Is there anything that's taking away from the benefits of the green tea itself when they actually decaffeinate it? Decaffeinated green tea is a thing.
I've never seen that.
You never seen that? Maybe it's a Canadian thing.
I don't know. Decaf green tea? I haven't seen that.
There's one upstairs.
Wow.
However, it's really old and it might not be organic.
Hold on, I know
so
that. So
maybe it's not real.
Like herbal teas are decaffeinated, right?
Herbal teas are decaffeinated, but this specifically says decaffeinated green tea.
Marketing.
Is it marketing and maybe it's not really green tea?
Weird.
I don't know. Or maybe they've gotten the caffeine down to a certain number that they don't have to necessarily report it or what have you. I don't know.
Or they found a way to make plants smarter. Which leads us into Smart Plants, which is the name of your book. So let's talk about that for a few minutes. Huh? What do you think? Smart Plants. I love it. It's a great book.
Thank you.
And we were talking this morning, before we started recording, that our daughter pulled out the book and actually put together a recipe by herself, and that was pretty fun.
Yeah, she did it all on her own. She's like, oh my God, I'm making this, and I kind of didn't want to help her. She had to use the Vitamix. She had to get the coconut in there, and the kids are basically just walking around eating like chunks of coconut with peppermint extract, which is amazing, right? But yeah, she learned how to use the Vitamix, how to turn on each button at a time. It was beautiful.
It's very cool.
It's so exciting. I love that. And like, honestly, when I get like little like DMs with kids and their smoothie that they made, or like, they're baking like little muffins and whatnot, there's nothing that excites me more, because when you inspire kids to eat that way from an early age, you're so golden. I mean, I was brought up on like mac and cheese with hot dogs in it, like it was work to get to where I am.
We had a casserole surprise where there was like beef and hot dogs in the tomato and pasta sauce. Like, no. Yeah, I don't know.
No.
It was, yeah. Sorry, Mom. Sorry, Mom.
No.
So, and then we also made a broccoli pesto.
Yes.
We made a broccoli pesto, so really high on the garlic in there. It was great to have extra broccoli. For us, it didn't work out. The leftovers didn't work out very well. So I'm just gonna say try to finish it all on the first day.
So there's so many cookbooks out there, and yours actually is a really nice looking book. It's a nice hardcover book. What inspired you to put this book together?
So I have 5 cookbooks that I wrote previously to this one, and they were all on superfoods. This one was specifically on nootropics and brain boosting recipes overall. And I hadn't really seen much like that out on the market that showcased how to boost your brain performance, how to boost your cognitive function through plants. And the more research I did, the more I found that plants truly are one of the best things that you can possibly put into your body for your brain health. And so I wanted to make recipes, plant-based recipes that fed into that, not to make a pun, and made things really delicious for people and boosted brain power at the same time, and showed people that this is not something that's difficult and not something that's flavorless, and it's not just about taking supplements. It's actually about eating real food. And so the recipes themselves, with the exception of the very last section, which is just daily rituals, the recipes themselves, they're all seasonally based, and they all use everyday ingredients as their base. And then you have optional nootropic boosts that you can add in. You don't have to, talking about what we were saying earlier in terms of like, do I buy this? Do I have to get every single thing right now? What if I can't afford it? That's why those things are all optional. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. And you're still going to get many benefits just from eating powerful brain boosting foods like avocados and nuts and ancient grains and greens and berries.
And I really respect that, because we will get a lot of questions from people saying, hey, I was looking to make this recipe, but I don't have this ingredient. What can I use instead, or what should I do? And I think the way that I cook when I'm not cooking from my own head is I look at the recipe list first and I see if that's doable. And then I look at the steps and make sure I don't get dizzy. And then I go ahead and I make it. But if you say these are the ingredients and then you keep reading and you say, but if you want to put this, this, and that, it gives you that opportunity to still go ahead and make it. And people don't know how the recipe will change if you take things out. So you're not taking anything out, you're putting it in. So I really do respect you for doing that. So thank you.
So for our YouTube people, this is what the book looks like. It's a really nice, thick book with 65 recipes. It's called Smart Plants, Power Foods and Natural Nootropics for Optimized Thinking, Focus, and Memory. So, Julie, if people want to get the book or connect with you, where would you want them to go to do that?
So the book is sold at all bookstores, both physical bookstores and online, Amazon, all that goodness. You can also go get the book on my website, which is called Luminberry, Lumin, berry like a berry.com. And they can connect with me there if they want. I'm also on Instagram at superfood Jules, Jules. So those are all good places to get more of these free recipes, actually, more recipe tips, ways on using some of these superfoods and nootropics, et cetera, et cetera.
And so we'll put those links in our show notes at planttrainers.com. What would be your favorite recipe to make in this book if you had to choose one? Putting you on the spot.
Oh, dear.
Oh my God. I'll tell you what I'm craving right now.
Good.
It's not my favorite recipe, but right now there's these citrus sweet potatoes in there. I love a good sweet potato. So these are roasted sweet potatoes, and they have this fresh citrus juice that they're tossed with a little bit of coconut, a little bit of arugula. They're just really fresh and alive tasting, but they still have that hearty base to them. I could use a plate of those right now.
Sounds good.
I'm looking forward to making the tofu and kale dish.
That one is so good. Yeah. Another good one.
That one looked really good. And that's the other thing. You have so many beautiful pictures of the food. And that's my other cookbook thing. If I will most likely not go for a recipe that doesn't have a picture. Not because the recipe is bad, not because I need to know what it looks like, but because I eat with my eyes first. I'm a very visual person, so I need to see those pictures, and they're gorgeous.
Yeah, you want to know what it looks like. What is it?
Absolutely.
What's going to be on your plate?
Very cool. This was a lot of fun. Great information. Thank you so much for sharing all these superfood ideas, thoughts, and knowledge. We really appreciate you being here, Julie. Thank you so much for being on the Plant Trainers podcast.
Thank you. Loved it.
Thank you all so much for listening to this edition of the Plant Trainers podcast. We want to make sure that you subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, or any other podcasting platform.
We really appreciate the feedback we receive from you. Every time we get a 5-star rating or review on iTunes from one of our fans, it really helps other people find us just like you did.
Thanks so much to our patrons. To become a patron, visit us at patreon.com/planttrainers. Even supporting us with $1 really makes a difference in the quality of the show.
And don't forget to connect with us on Instagram and Twitter. Our handle is @PlantTrainers. Like Plant Trainers on Facebook, join our newsletter, and check out our website at planttrainers.com for awesome recipes, a list of our services, and of course, our latest podcast.
We encourage you to email your questions to info@planttrainers.com so that we can help you improve your quality of life through nutrition and fitness.
So we hope we've inspired you today. Join us again next time and have a healthy day. Or is that too corny?
It's a little cheesy.